glad you and I are talking, Cliff, finally about all this
Yeah.
because there are lots of different ways we can go. One is to bounce off of what Harry and I were talking about and how the Democratic Party has just it's sucked in terms of reaching out on when it comes to new media and hitting that side of things. Your assessment of it.
Yeah. I mean, the assessment is yes, sadly. It's a lack of understanding that you need to constantly be messaging. This is something I've been screaming about for years,
Yeah.
that you have to be willing to be aggressive and go after them and define the narrative. I've used a less complimentary term. I've referred to corporate media. Um, I never thought I'd say that 10 years ago. But as I saw, starting with the coverage of the 2016 campaign and after, and obviously
Yeah.
I always made sure to say there are some amazing exceptions. You were always one of those that I spoke about. We're losing some of those amazing exceptions there. Of course, we're bringing them over here, and we need that. But
Yeah.
yeah, when it comes to look, you can't just put out a press release or do a one-time response to some awful thing Trump does, because he'll do something awful the next day or that night. Or I mean, you
Yeah.
have
10
to
minutes.
have
Yeah.
right. So AOC and Bernie going around the country, that's great. Cory Booker has tried to stay out there after the filibuster with Chris Van Hollen did. What I've said is you need to create spectacle. You need to sort of, these marches have been fantastic the last two of the last
Oh,
3 weekends,
incredible. Yeah.
right? But we should have. I mean, I like the idea of the shadow cabinet. I said that a while back. I thought we should do that, but we also should have, a coterie of folks who are talented. Your Jasmine Crockett, your Eric Swalwells, your people like that, Adam Schiff's, whoever. That should be ready at Congress, as far as I'm concerned, to every day to rebut the garbage you're saying. Some folks outside the Supreme Court, legal experts, ready to rebut whatever Alito is, whatever 14th century, pardon it, but I'm just going to say it, rape apologist he's using in his next decision, like he used to overturn Roe. I mean, these are people that are not of good faith, and we need to be making that clear to Americans every day, and with new media, as you said, creatively.
Yeah. And you were an ad writer for Joe Biden. I mean, messaging is so important. What's the messaging that the Democrats are getting right now, and what are they doing wrong? I mean, one of the things that's come up in recent days, I talked a little bit about this with Harry, is the politics of Kilmar, which to me it's like it's not about the politics of
Yep.
Kilmar. Yes, he may turn out to be a bad person. We don't know that, as a matter of fact. But he should have his day in court. He should have due process. That's the American way. That's how it should work. And that's just doing what's right and not poll testing it or worrying. Your thoughts on this? And are there other examples where you think, okay, messaging good here, messaging shitty there?
Yeah, I love it. On this show,
Yeah.
you can say shitty. It's
Yeah.
I used to.
I'm trying to do this less. I will say I've been I talked to some relatives over Easter, and they're like, "Oh, you say the F word. Oh, you say shit." I'm like, "Well, that's
Hey,
people."
you're like, hey, I fucking say it. All right. I mean, what am I going to do?
I usually say the F word. Usually save that for Friday, but all right, fuck it. It's Tuesday. I'll say it here too.
Yeah. All right. No, I mean, look, that's the thing is that, you know, even you and I sitting here joking like this, there's so many ways now to connect. Okay. And the problem with Democrats, so back in 2020, look, I wrote a bunch of ads. I think I was one of the folks, certainly not just me, who kept pushing the other F word, fascist. Like we wanted Joe Biden to say it so badly. And finally, he referred to Trump as a semi-fascist. I'm like, I'll take it. Right. We got it out there.
I remember that. Yeah.
Right. Because we're so reticent to sit. I mean, they're making up lies about abortion after birth as if that's even, I don't know what you would, and
I'm getting
the kind,
PTSD thinking about that one. That was one of I hated that one almost more than anything else. He would say this
yep.
over and over again, and he's just a pathological liar. I mean, people just need to understand we're relearning this the second time around. He's a pathological liar. He will just lie because that's what he does.
Yes, it's all he does. And so, there are real world results. People forget a man walked into Colorado Springs, Planned Parenthood muttering about baby parts after Ted Cruz and the Republican debate. And they've been talking about that. I mean, stochastic terrorism. I don't want to do that, but you can't let them accuse you of these kinds of things and not hit back hard. And again, it doesn't mean you don't do it traditionally, like with ads, like we did in 2020, but again, Substack's growing here hugely. Look at what you've done here with a broadcast. I mean, we've got YouTube, we've got TikTok. Harry, was just on, who has 1 million followers there. We should be doing, there should be constant creative responses. And then we even have the individuals, Jasmine Crockett. I mean, these people that have shown they're so good at this. Yeah. Unshackle them. Let them go and stop saying you must stick to this. We have to be cautious. It's poll tested. As you said, people, I hate to say it, but I think it was George W. Bush. You might have said people like strong and wrong.
Yeah.
Well, why about being strong and right? Which is we believe in the United States of America. We believe in the Constitution. We believe that you believe this is the greatest country in the history of the world, you MAGA person, then how can you believe we can take somebody without due process and throw them into a gulag abroad? That's not America. And I don't care how it polls, but it turns out it seems to poll pretty well, because if you saw that town hall with Chuck Grassley, I mean, he's barely a sentient being at this point. So I'm not sure he knew what side of the road he was on, but I'll lay off the old jokes. I'm old enough. It's okay. But I mean, in all seriousness, that looked like a MAGA crowd, and they just went after him for 3 minutes. They were pissed. One guy yelled out, he's like, "I'm pissed." I mean, I think you can if you bring out people's passion, if you lead them, and not the kind of anger that's going to assault people, cause violence, but the kind of righteous anger about this is wrong. The immigration is wrong. You having your farm taken away from you, who voted for Donald Trump, is wrong. And connect it all to the greed of the billionaire class. Even millionaires are not worth talking about anymore, because they don't give a crap about millionaires. They'll screw you too. It's literally a couple guys sitting at the top who are all talking about weirdos before. We're fucking weirdos like Peter Thiel, who wants to live forever and probably thinks that, he'll take our parts to do it, and become a cybernetic organism or something like the Terminator. And we need to make it clear how weird these people are. And they say stuff like George Soros. Who's the billionaire who's meeting in back rooms, who wasn't elected and planning out our economic lives? It wasn't George Soros.
If you had some unelected billionaire, richest guy in the world, who was on the Democratic side, like a George Soros, like let's just say Joe Biden brought in George Soros and said, "George, I want you to go through every federal agency and just cut the stuff that you want to cut." And while George Soros was there, he got his buddies at, I don't know, whatever left-leaning tech company you can think of, and they're just going to start hoovering up everybody's data. Washington would have been burned to the ground. It would have January 6th would have looked like a picnic compared to that. They would have gone ape shit on the right.
Yes.
And what's taking place right now, and I hate to say you hit the nail on the head earlier, and I think people just need to call it out, and the media needs to get on board with this, because they've just been tiptoeing through the tulips a little too much, is that what we're seeing is fascist behavior. We are seeing fascism. And when the president of the United States puts out a Truth Social post who says, well, we can't have due process. We can't have trials for all these undocumented people because it would just take too long. I'm sorry, that is outside the American experience. That is not within the Constitution. And if we're not within the Constitution and we're moving in a far right direction and trying to justify scooping people off the streets and sending them to foreign prisons with no due process, I'm sorry, but that is fascist. That is what a fascist country does.
Yes, and
it
again,
just is.
No, you're 100% correct. And again, say this is what Dwight Eisenhower and others led us to fight against in World War II. You can bring Republicans, back when the Republican Party had sane people in it, into this story and talk about, the way you get to a message. You build a narrative arc. We all learn, and as the beings that we are, we learn by telling stories. We know how to write for however many thousands of years, and we pass on stories. Tell a story. A story has a good guy. It has a bad guy. It tells you what they did wrong and how we can solve it. And from that, we believe for years, you believed in due process. Dwight Eisenhower believed it. We even gave Nazis trials, in Nuremberg. We believed that everyone deserved due process. And now we have this fascist little man, due to his own weakness and insecurities, who is calling for what? I mean, is he enriching himself from Ecuador? Probably. Yeah. Is he doing it to excite his base? Probably. Is he doing it because he hates? I'll use a line from the late Val Kilmer, as was just there. Hates the whole world for being born. Yes, that seems to be a problem for him, that he has to take out his insecurities on all of us. Yeah. Well, fight back and point out. Again, I don't mean to keep bringing up some of the same names, but when Jasmine Crockett the other day came up and she said he's calling Kilmer a criminal. Last I checked, Kilmer Alvaro Garcia has not been convicted of anything. Donald Trump's the criminal. Donald Trump's the one who's been convicted of crimes. Donald Trump is the one who's an adjudicated rapist. And there was the one mistake I thought Kamala's campaign did a great job at hitting back and at trying to control the narrative. But every single day, they should have been reminding Americans that he's a criminal. He's an adjudicated rapist. He's committed treason against the country with domestic terrorists on January 6th. Instead, we didn't talk about that stuff. Merrick Garland followed some norms that did us no good,
Yeah.
and they were able to sort
Well,
of
that, yeah, and that's the other thing too. I have to wonder, since you're on Team Biden, I mean, I recently spoke with a former Biden administration official, um, and I'll just say this: this was a very senior level Biden official who said that there were lots of people inside the Biden White House, inside the Biden administration, at high levels who were frustrated with Merrick Garland, with how long that took.
I, I
To,
mean,
to,
you
to,
have to be,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
and there are some people that have argued, oh, it was Roberts and whatever. He still could have appointed somebody. I mean, the fact that it took us, I think I made this comparison once. It took
yeah,
us the same amount of time to appoint an independent prosecutor as it took Brazil to convict Bolsonaro. So they
yeah,
had done it within like a year and a half, and it took us a year and a half just to start looking. And the other thing I think that's incredibly important here, because it goes back to our conversation, is we had Comey, talk about reopening an investigation into Hillary, a week before an election. We had
yeah.
Barr lie about the Mueller report. But we're going to follow norms and not tell the American people what happened on January 6th. Merrick Garland should have had a press conference every fucking, pardon, whatever. I'm just going to say
Ah,
every
say it.
fucking
Yeah,
week, and if not more often, to tell people, we can't tell you about ongoing cases, but here's who they are. Here are the
yeah.
domestic terrorists who attacked. Here are the domestic terrorists we've convicted. Use those words a lot, because
Yeah,
that's what it was. Yep.
it was so, delicately handled, and let's just be careful, and contrast that with what's happening right now and with deport. I mean, it's kind of incredible. But the other thing that you mentioned, Cliff, that I think is hugely important, and I think it's an opening for the Democrats, is to talk about the economy. I mean, just today there's a new Gallup poll. Gallup's yearly reading on Americans' assessment of their personal finances shows a record high 53% now believing their situation is getting worse. This marks the first time in the trend dating back to 2001 that a
Wow.
majority have expressed financial pessimism. That is according to Gallup. That's one of the gold standards of polling. And it goes back to maybe the town hall you were talking about with Chuck Grassley, in that, people are hopping mad right now, and they are feeling it. They're feeling it acutely right now. And I don't know if the Democrats are hitting that as hard as they could.
No, I don't think so.
Jasmine Crockett, maybe some others, but it seems to be there's a lot of financial insecurity right now. It's all basically created by Trump. I mean, with the exception of, yes, inflation was a little too high, though it was trending in the right direction. The job picture was good. The stock market was in good shape. All Trump really had to do was to go play golf and do nothing.
Which
And
he
he
seems to
decided
like to do. And, we
yeah,
should have enticed him and told him that we would kick his ball forward for him instead of him having to do it, so he could win.
exactly.
He could have sent those messages that he won every time.
We'll give him all the trophies from all of the Trump golf courses
All the most
every week.
beautiful trophies. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the
and
thing.
JD Vance could fumble them and break them, but that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
JD Vance, listen, everything I don't want to make that joke.
Well, let's not go. Let's not go there.
Yeah. I'll say, as somebody sitting in Cincinnati, Ohio, when you break the Ohio State trophy, we could talk about that one. I don't know if he should ever set foot in the state again. But
Yeah,
you're so correct about it, because here's the thing. It unites all of us right now. Okay. We are all losing our IRAs or our 401ks by a man who purposely did it. Doge is 80% of these job losses were Doge. 80% of them were unnecessary. Yeah. They were thrust upon us, some crazy agenda. So show the contrast, which is messaging too. Elon Musk over here wanting to buy up the parts, and Peter Thiel and the rest of them, or the rest of us who doesn't, whatever situation you're in, lost income, lost jobs, lost farms. Your workers aren't showing up anymore. They're scared of being deported. There's so many folks on the MAGA side that have lost work too. It is a uniting message to say Donald Trump is feeding your income, your retirement, your kid's school, college fund to his billionaire friends, because that's what's going on here when he's destroying this economy. Whether it's on purpose or it's because he's just a fucking moron, I don't really care. And I think it's a little bit of both. But I do think that we need to make that message clear, and we need to be very straightforward with people about it.
and there's also hand-wringing going on, and I don't want to name. I'll name names. Okay, California Governor Gavin Newsom apparently gave an interview to The Hill. He's accusing the Democratic Party, this according to The Hill, of not yet performing a thorough autopsy on what went wrong in the November election. He did this exclusive sit down with The Hill, and he says, quote, "I don't know what the party is. I'm still struggling with that." What do you make of that? And I mean, Gavin, I should say Governor Newsom had started this podcast. And I may be starting up a shitstorm here, but he had Steve Bannon and some of these other people on, and they were not really aggressive interviews. I mean, if I had Steve Bannon on, Steve Bannon would know he was doing an interview with me.
Yep,
And I just,
I believe that. Yeah.
what's happening? What are your thoughts?
I mean, we did this with Bannon and Charlie Kirk of all people. If you
Yeah.
want to go and talk to a conservative who believes in conservatism, I kicked off my show on here every Thursday, which is, I guess I should plug it, Amped Up with Cliff Schechter.
Oh, do it, yeah, please.
And we had Joe Walsh on. I had a conservative on who I disagree with lots of stuff, and yet we get along really well. You don't even have to have an anti-Trump, just maybe even one that has sort of been on the fence, but somebody who's honest. When you go on with Charlie Kirk, who lies for a living, and Steve Bannon, who
Yes.
has I don't get the point of that. And I don't care. I've been fair. I've been the same about this. I got people on the left angry at me when I used to criticize Bernie when he would attack the Democratic Party as corrupt. Well, if you're Gavin Newsom, just to prove to them I always meant what I said, I went after Manchin and Sinema and now Fetterman and Gavin Newsom. I don't care what side you're on. You're part of our coalition, and you can be a conservative or you can be all the way over to socialist. If you're willing to come together to defeat the other side, don't give me this bullshit about, I don't know what Democrat. We know what we are. We need to message better. We need more investment in infrastructure. One of the reasons people like me and a lot of us end up at Substack is it provides a lot of the infrastructure that there's no liberal billionaires are providing for us like they are.
Yeah, that's so true.
For people on the right. So
it's so true.
So we need to do more, right, Jim? But it doesn't mean sitting there like bagging on your own part. I don't know what he thinks he's doing. I don't know what Fetterman thinks he's doing, but now I really don't like both of you.
I think Governor Newsom is attempting to find sort of a Clintonian path to the nomination where he can, every once in a while sort of crap on the left and that sort of thing, and maybe score some brownie points here and there with moderate Democrats or Democrats who have drifted over to Trump and so on. But I don't see how you can get through a primary process with that kind of a strategy, first of all. And then second of all, it's sort of like, this argument that people have in the media about, well, if we just could, appeal to the Fox News viewers, we'll pull some of them over and we'll say it's never going to work. It's not going to work. Well, you're not going to pull in MAGA. It's just not going to work. Please, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's just not going to happen.
I love that reference, by the way. But your station trying to did they really think your old station, I should say? And look, I got screen tested at one point. I was almost on CNN. I'll say,
yeah.
I used to
and
go
I don't
on.
want to say anything bad about them. I love those.
No,
guys.
I understand. Well, I'll say bad stuff if you want. I can help you there. No, but you're not gonna get these folks if they leave Fox. It's for Newsmax, OAN, or maybe one of Elon Musk's rockets or something to leave the planet to go to some place that, like Moonraker type thing, or maybe they can have the perfect race up in space. They're not going to CNN. They're not going to NBC. And I don't understand, anybody who gets anything about branding doesn't get that at this point.
Yeah.
So, and you're so correct on this. Again, it's not, you said at the beginning, so I know we're coming toward the end. And so, we can end where we began, which is you said, it's everybody in favor of democracy. Okay. I'm a center-left Democrat. AOC is to the left of me and did some things when she first came up that I didn't love. I love her now because she's a fighter. And there's some people in the Democratic Party to the right of me who are moderates.
She's kicking a lot of ass right now. I'll say she's just kicking ass.
And that's what I want. Yeah. Right. I don't care, honestly, like if you're anywhere, if you support our party and you're anywhere within that broad spectrum, that's all I want. I just want you to fight the other side.
Yeah.
So,
well, Cliff, great to talk to you. The way I describe it is the American way of life. And it's just, we can talk about pro-democracy and it's about the American way of life. And do you want that to go away? I mean, that to me is that's it. That's the whole ballgame. Do you want that to go away? Because if the president can get rid of due process for migrants, guess what? He can get rid of it for other classes of individuals. Yeah. And you wait and see. Just you wait and see. I mean, that is what people need to be concerned about, in my personal view. But Cliff, great to talk to you. Let's keep doing this. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We did a lot of phone tag and email tag, and so we finally got there. We did it. The eagle has landed.
We knew we could work it out eventually, Jim. We could work it out.
Good to see you,
thanks,
Cliff.
Seriously, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
You bet. Great to talk to you. That was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Great to talk to you too.